Now we're going to begin this question with Bob Buckhorn and rotate accordingly. What are your views on reestablishing trade relations with Cuba?
Great question. It's a question that we get often. I'm of the belief that we need to do everything to prepare for the day when Castro falls and democracy is reestablished in Cuba. That means getting our port ready, getting our airport ready, getting our business community ready to take advantage of that. But understand, folks, mayors don't make foreign policy. We react to what the Obama administration is going to do. I will tell you, in terms of my political capital and the limited time that I will have as your mayor, I would think you and I would be far better suited as we build Tampa into the gateway to the Americas to focus on countries with which we already have a mature trading relationship. Countries that have the ability to pay for the goods that they purchase from us. If you look at Mexico all the way down to Venezuela, that offers us tremendous opportunities to re-engage, to reinvigorate our international trade efforts, to trade with countries with which we have a similar language, a similar culture, and that have the ability to pay. Castro and Cuba will come at the appropriate time. But in the interim, I think we really need to focus on building those relationships with the countries that have the ability to pay us for our goods.
Mr. Turanchik.
I firmly believe that free trade results in freedom. And within 90 days as mayor, I'll put together a high-level group of people, business leaders from here and Central Florida. And I've talked to the people in Central Florida, which I worked on with the Olympics and high-speed rail, and they want to go. They believe that we should explore every option for trading with Cuba. But let's go beyond this. You know, foreign policy is the province of every American. And U.S. foreign policy here is dictated not in Washington, but in South Florida. We all know that. That's the reality. It's about electoral votes. And there's no reason why we can't, as Tampa Bay and Central Florida, say it's in the compelling interest of our citizens, their economic livelihood, their future, to open the doors of trade with a nation that we have, as a city, the longest historic relationship of any place. Let's get on with it. Free trade means freedom.
Mr. Scott.
Well, Ed and I agree on that. I was the first candidate who came out with it. He jumped on it. So that's fine, because I want you to understand something. Jobs are very important. We have a great asset in the ports on 2,500 acres. We need to open up, do trade with Cuba, which creates jobs for this community. Now, please understand, this is not a U.S. foreign policy issue. Let me help you understand. Do you know Jacksonville do trade with Cuba? Do you know New Orleans? What about Houston? Yeah. Nebraska? Oh yeah. So it's not a U.S. foreign. We are an agricultural state, so within the U.S. policies, you can do trade now with Cuba based on what you have as an agricultural state and create jobs here for Tampa.
Mr. Greco.
It's not up to us to do that, one, and Bob was correct in saying that we don't set foreign policy. If we did, I think maybe we'd be halfway on our way to a new democracy up there. I went to Cuba 8 years ago. I speak Spanish, Italian, and a little bit of 3 or 4 more languages. I met with Castro for 5 hours and 45 minutes. That's longer he gave the Pope. You know what my first sentence was? I didn't come here to sell you anything, to do business. What do you do with these kids you're educating? What are they going to do, drive a cab? He said, I don't have an answer for that. After 5 hours and 45 minutes, he says, come back anytime you want. No one wanted to listen. Now they're talking about maybe not doing the flights to Cuba. But more Americans they see, the more they see democracy, the more we can do something. It's been almost 60 years, gang. It's gone from 5.6 million people when there when Castro started to over 11.5 million. Which means half have never seen any more than they're looking at. You go down there, if it doesn't break your heart, I think about it every day. I think about the lady of the National Council of Churches said, Dick, you've got to go back. Yeah, for you by name, please come. No one would give me the authority to go back. I'd go back tomorrow if I could change that.
When I was serving as a Port Authority Commissioner, someone posed the same question that Reverend Scott talked about. Why are other ports doing this and we're not? That's really not a factor or a function of the port itself. That is a decision that's made by the carriers, by the shippers. And I know of one particular company who's had the same issue. They had to go to Jacksonville because the port here wouldn't ship it. Well, if you don't have enough container products to ship, then it's not a wise business decision. We could do that, but at this point, there's just not enough going on, and that's why some people ship out of Jacksonville. We will always be postured to encourage more trade. Our port of Tampa is just an incredible economic development resource. We will continue to have negotiations with other countries all over the world, and at the time that the U.S. releases or relaxes the laws to allow us to trade with Cuba, then certainly we're not going to say no. We're the closest in proximity to Cuba, but law has to allow us, and we will be postured to take advantage if, in fact, it is an economic benefit to our community.
All right, we're going to begin the next question with Ed Turanchik on the end and work our way this way. What do you see as your role, and how do you see your role in the practices of the mayor in dealing with the city council?
Oh, I think it's, I view the city council as an essential element of city government. I think the city council gets too bogged down, perhaps, in rezonings. We have this opportunity to reframe what kind of city we're being and what kind of city we can grow into. And I'd like to sit down very early with city council and say, what's your vision for our future? What do we want our city to look like? I think we should have different neighborhood plans for different neighborhoods. It's not one size fits all. Let's understand what the vision is that we have for our future and frame a land development code and regulations that channel growth in a way and form in a way that suits us. So I see city council as being an absolutely vital element in how you build a city for the 21st century, and would expect to engage them with neighborhoods and business groups in a vigorous discussion of how to build a 21st century.
Mr. Scott.
I think it's very imperative as a mayor, you have a strong mayor form of government, to begin to work with city council, bring them along, and engage them before the budget process. As a county commission, we started the budget process in February. With the city, the mayor presents the budget in August, and we have 45 days to go through that budget, okay? That's why I propose a service level analysis would have public debate, public forums, and allow the city council to take part in that process so they're aware. The single most responsibility that the city council have now under the charter is zoning and the budget. So why not get them on board early in the process versus having 45 days to try to go through a budget? We're going to have a lot of challenges, and it's important for them to come along and be engaged earlier than just 45 days out before it is voted on and passed. And so city council is very important to this community, by the way, and it deserves a lot of respect.
Mr. Greco.
I'm the only person up here that can positively answer that question. I was mayor 14.5 years. A couple of folks up here were councilmen when I was there. I think I said earlier in this discussion, never did I send anything to city council in 14.5 years that didn't pass. Nor did I ever use the veto power, because I respect each and every person. I made sure they knew what was coming. They had an open door policy in my office anytime they wanted to come to ask any question. 7 heads are better than one. They may have something different than I want to do. I always have operated that way. Never in the history of this city is it more important that we get along with each other, that we understand where we're going, that we hold hands and get through this together. Not only city council, county commission, mayors of other cities, everybody around us. This is important that we have someone that can have dialogue. In the 21 years I was with the Barlow Corporation, all the projects we built around the country, I never had one turned down. You know why? I operate the same way. I went to the neighborhood groups, the chambers of commerce, to city council, to mayors, and it got done. I know how to do it. I've done it. I'm not guessing.
This is one advantage that Reverend Scott and I have in common. We have seen how both governments work and have the opportunity to pick and choose what's best from both. Of course, we each will have our own roles. I will be the chief executive for the city of Tampa, and of course the legislative body will be the city council. But ultimately, collectively, finally, we all work for you. So although it is a strong mayoral form of government, not to do with the government, the mayor in place, just the form of government that it is, That's the process. But at the same time, if we do engage them in partaking in discussions, and I agree wholeheartedly with Reverend Scott, that they come in early on in the budget. Those are some of the things that the County Commission did that were really, really profitable to the citizens. So we will establish that kind of relationship. We will do it right away, and we will look forward, I certainly will look forward to working with some of the city council members in terms of things that we have to negotiate for you. It's a win-win.
Mr. Buckhorn.
Jeff, other than Dick Greco, I'm the only person that has served in both the administrative side of the House as well as the legislative branch. I spent 8 years as the top assistant to former Mayor Sandy Friedman, and then 8 years on the council. So I've sat in both seats. I get it. I know what it feels like for a city council to be shunned and ignored and negated. But the reality is city council members are elected by the very same people that elect us as mayor. And so I think it's important that they be brought into the process, that they be engaged. Understand, folks, this election right now, not only are you going to have a new mayor, but you are also going to have potentially 5 new city council members. I mean, it truly is a once-in-a-decade or once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to turn not only the generational page in this community, but also to change the outlook of city council and change that relationship. But it's also more important than that. It's about establishing relationships with our partners at the County Commission. I've met with Al Higginbotham to talk about our future. I've been down to St. Pete to talk to Bill Foster about how we can work together. We compete as a region, we react as a region, we need to survive as a region, we need to work as a region. So think beyond just City Council and look at our partners around the Bay Area.
All right, thank you all. We'll begin this next question with Mr. Scott. Would you favor consolidating services with the county, and how would you go about doing that?
Yes, I would favor that. In fact, that process has already begun. 2 months ago, we spent $8 million. I think John knows this, him and all John did. We spent $8 million on our software and technology so that we can begin to work with the county in terms of purchasing. That's one area. The other area would be in fleet maintenance, looking at parks and recreation. Those areas, I think you have to look at all of those areas where we can consolidate. You must understand something tonight. Government cannot function the way it did 4 years ago or 8 years ago. We don't have the resources, we don't have the finances, so as a result, we must now begin to collaborate not only with the county commission, but all other municipalities, other areas in the regions, as I think Bob said earlier, see how we can work together and you know, work together in terms of resources so that we can better serve you, this community and the city of Tampa. So it's important for us to understand government cannot function the way it did 4 years ago.
We wish we could go back and let it function like it was. We had 2.9% unemployment, and everywhere you look, somebody was building something. It's not going to be like that, gang. Absolutely not. I've been for consolidated government since I was 29 years old. I tried to get it to a vote twice. It failed both times because a lot of politics involved in it. And there were a lot of other factors. The county paid different taxes than we did and so forth. Today it's pretty much alike. I'm going to look at every single department that we can merge, every one. And I'm not going to look at it by myself. I've already got people identified in different areas that will look at parks, that will look at 2 different broadcast stations and see if there's a savings, what, how come, and why. Once you do 1 or 2, it'll be easier to do the rest. I've talked to the sheriff the other day. He saved several $1 million with biddings of insurance. I want to know what that is. Why didn't he talk to the city? Not only there, I mean insurance, people, things we buy, purchasing, my God, we should be looking at every single thing we're doing. I guarantee you that's going to be done by lots of folks, including me.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's another world, and government has to act differently. Partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. And so there are some areas where I think the city does well, standing alone in terms of those services. But there are many that are better served countywide, like countywide school, countywide library, countywide buses. And so those are things we have to look at in conjunction and in partnership with Hillsborough County. We have to look at collaboration for sure in procurement. Economies of scale is simple. The more you get, the less it is per unit. So we need to be a partner of Hillsborough County. Look at fleet. I started an emergency management and sustainability task force that talked about it in County Commission, how we could save energy costs with alternative fuels, with hybrids, with electric cars, with different things that were good for our economy and made good business sense. All of that's fine except for the fact if we don't hook them together and make them efficient through technology, like the ERP program that's in place now with the clerk's office in the city and the county, it's all for naught. So absolutely, I think that's the way we need to go. As I said, another world.
Jeff, I think you're going to hear all of us agree on the basic premise of this. Anytime you can buy in volume, anytime you can combine employee units, I mean, think of the capacity of the school system, which is one of the largest employers in this area. The city and the county, in terms of purchasing power, insurance, IT, some of the things that we've talked about today. But I think you have to look beyond that. I mean, in those conversations with Mayor Foster, I mean, if we're going to compete as a region, we need to act as a region. Why not have a regional transportation system, including the bus system? Why not look at Tampa International Airport running Clearwater St. Petersburg Airport? I mean, why not look at the economies of scale where we could join together, where we could maximize our resources, where we could reduce the cost, where there would be a benefit to the taxpayers, and then look at how we compete. I guarantee you that the economies of scale are there. I think in the long run it will return value to the taxpayer and it will make us far more competitive than what we are. And if we can't compete as a region, we're not going to survive.
Mr. Turanchik.
Well, you're the board of directors, or more specifically, you're the shareholders, and you hire the board of directors. And they're all the people that you pay for. Superintendent of schools, the county commissioners, mayor. We need to run things in a way that's consistent with your interest, efficiently, at the lowest cost possible. But also has to be accountable. There's some functions that I'm not sure that city residents want the county commissioners to be running. Think about that. There's been times within very recent history where the county commission hasn't exactly been sensitive to urban issues. So we gotta be smart about it. And just when we say we're gonna consolidate this and that, it doesn't work. Take, for instance, the transit agencies. PSTA has a higher wage structure than HART. You merge them, we're going to have to pay more. So we want to be smart about it. We want to look at it and just operate this component of government like a business. We'll merge those things that make sense. Those that we don't, we leave alone.
All right, this next question, we will begin with Mr. Greco. Do you feel that the mayor has a role in helping to establish affordable housing in the city?
Probably the way you'll be able to do that today, there'll be federal help and that type of thing. It'll be difficult otherwise. We did a lot the last time we were there with affordable housing, especially in East Tampa. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of homes. We're going to have to be close to everything in Tallahassee and in Washington. We're talking about rail. I'd go see the president, see if he'd extend the rail from where it dumps in downtown to all the way to the airport, so you can see one area that's complete and then work on the light rail for the rest of it. Affordable housing or anything else is not exactly a role of the government. There are some government programs already in effect. They're trying some in the county now. I think they had mentioned some the other day. So far, we don't know how well it's working. There are a lot of forced closures, a lot of houses out there that, in various neighborhoods, it's not like it used to be where you might see that one place. I think until that inventory is used up, we're going to have a hard time. I'll look at every federal fund there is, every state fund there is, and whatever might be available to identify that today is impossible. And I don't know an answer to it. Some of the things I've heard don't make sense to me. I'm sorry.
Ms. Ferlita.
Thank you, Jeff. Obviously, your mayor can be aggressive or not be aggressive. There are many grants and opportunities like neighborhood stabilization program that come down from the federal government. Of course we will support it, of course we will lobby it, of course we will be aggressive in trying to get that for the city of Tampa. And although that's not exactly our role in terms of affordable housing, we can partner with different service citizens of our community. I think at one point we tried to do something like that, offering discounts to our service people, law enforcement, nurses, healthcare. So any way we can help in terms of the housing market, we will be there. We will partner with state and federal opportunities, that's for sure.
Jeff, if you will recall, there was a time and a place in the city when we were the envy of the nation in terms of housing programs. We were the place that President Clinton and Vice President Gore used to come to see how we did things. I mean, our challenge fund was the envy of cities all over the country. We were moving people from public housing to first-time home buyer opportunities in the thousands. It makes sense. It stabilized neighborhoods. It stabilized lives. It gave people an opportunity for the first time to own a home and become a productive citizen. We ended up, in the wake of the LeBrake scandal, basically being blacklisted by HUD. Now, that's a terrible fall. We need to get back on track. We need to re-energize that challenge fund. We need to find ways to partner with our lending institutions to create an environment where housing's important. Ed, over the last 10 years, has done a tremendous job in a very tough neighborhood doing exactly that. He was right then. Sandy Friedman was right 20 years ago. We need to get back on track. We can do it and once again become the envy of the nation.
Mr. Turanchik.
Bob, I agree. I think Sandy Friedman's The Challenge Fund was a very strong program for its times. Listen to the answers of the people up here. Listen to what was said. We're going to get grants. We're going to go to Washington. We're going to go to Tallahassee. I want to empower us. We have more affordable housing now than we've had in 30 years. There's too much. Housing values have fallen so fast, so hard, that we're awash in affordable housing. People are upside down in their mortgages. I see this liability as an asset and an opportunity to put people back to work. Houses to Homes does that. It's, if you will, the challenge fund on steroids. And some of the people here don't know how to do it, then maybe you shouldn't elect them as mayor. Because I do. Person that rents for $1,000 can buy a home for $25,000 with $50,000 to rehab it, own a home for $75,000 with payments of $600 a month. We should do that. Get those working families into those homes, change our economy, lift our neighborhoods, and pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and quit relying on other people to bail us out. Thank you.
Mr. Scott.
On the county commission, I headed up and formed the Affordable Housing Task Force, now the advisory board, but had tremendous success reorganizing the whole county housing department. So I know how it's done. That's number one. Number two, Ed has some great ideas, but however, you're not going to get rid of the federal dollars. I want you to know today, on our agenda for this coming Thursday, $4.3 million is part 3 of the NSP, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, scheduled to expand out into the Gandy area to buy up foreclosed homes, abandoned homes, so that we can make neighborhoods safe and put those homes back into the market. Hillsborough County got $19.1 million in the first NSP, Neighborhood Stabilization Program. So you're not going to get rid of those federal dollars right away, Ed, because they serve as a purpose for this community and for this city. I think that we look at our program, we revamp it, we revise it, and we move towards helping people get into affordable housing. That is our responsibility. That is the job that we need to do to help our citizens. Thank you.
All right, our final prepared question will go to Rose first and then move on. There have been many efforts over the years to complete the Riverwalk. What would you do to help bring this project to completion?
Jeff, many of the amenities that Tampa has identifies what Tampa has versus other municipalities. I would support the Riverwalk, but we have to do things in due time. Right now, you go in and you make the tough decisions right now. You look at what our citizens need, and the new rule will be needs over wants. That's what you would expect me to do to make those tough decisions. As we go forward, we certainly want to build on what Mayoral has done. That's phenomenal. It's incredible. People talk about it. We were at Tampa Prep today talking about it. And so those are things we don't want to lose. It identifies what Tampa's all about, the amenities in downtown. We work hard for that. But I will tell you, we have to go about it a different way. This is a different world. Government can't afford to fund everything. Partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. Friends of the Riverwalk, that's where we go. Anybody who's interested in doing things that we want to partner with, we work with them. Ladies and gentlemen, it can be done, but we have to make priorities, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as your mayor.
Jeff, any city that has a waterfront, the waterfront is always the focal point for development. I mean, that waterfront is a jewel for Tampa. Do you know that since I think Governor Martinez invested in the Performing Arts Center, we've spent probably close to $1 billion in major public projects along the waterfront, but we've never connected the dots. So you can't get from the Performing Arts Center all the way around to the aquarium without getting in your car. Over the next 8 years, the job of the next mayor is going to be to connect the dots. Now, we're going to have to find a financing plan to be able to do that. We have to limit public investment in it. But I look at that Riverwalk as an opportunity to create more jobs and create more opportunities. We need more attractions down there. The parks are wonderful. Mayor Greco did a good job getting some parks. But ultimately, we need restaurants, we need bars, we need boat slips, we need reasons for people to come down there. You should be able to go to the Performing Arts Center, have a drink beforehand, stay for dinner afterwards, walk down the Riverwalk, see a show, get in your boat maybe and go home. That will be an 18-hour-a-day environment for downtown Tampa. It's what downtown Tampa needs, it's what our investment warrants, and we need to get it done.
Well, it is a world of limited resources, and the Riverwalk is something I have supported, both privately and publicly. I will say, though, there's a game changer on the horizon, and it's high-speed rail that will open here in 2015, assuming the governor does the right thing. We need to make sure it connects to all the places it needs to connect to Ybor City, to Channelside, to the Arts District, to Hyde Park, to Tampa Heights, hopefully to a new modern rail transit system based upon the CSX tracks, running that little Regio Sprinter type train that we brought here 13 years ago, that too many people have forgotten about. There's 45 million people, 32 minutes away in Walt Disney World. This is an extraordinary opportunity, and if we're going to put and make strategic investments in our downtown, we have to do it in a way to maximize the value of that asset to us. It's taxpayer dollars that's building it. We need to maximize our return on it.
You fund the Riverwalk, you keep it in context of your budget. It has begun, it needs to be completed, but you have to do it in context of your budget. On the agenda on Thursday, Friends of the Riverwalk has an item on there to add to that, to the construction of the Riverwalk. It is a great project. We have done some great things downtown, and as everybody has said, you continue to build upon that, connect the dots. You do know that 25% of your tax revenue comes from tourism. And so as a result of that, you need to continue to do those things downtown so that tourists can continue to come to Tampa and we continue to get those revenue to invest back in this community and build upon so that we can help our community, help our city from what we invest into the Riverwalk, downtown, and on. I'm going to talk a little bit more tomorrow about an idea I have for downtown. I'm not going to let it out of the bag tonight, but tomorrow morning at 7:30.
That's called a tease in my business. Mr. Greco.
I don't think you're going to see a big emphasis on large projects anymore. I think we've got everything in place that Tampa needs to be sold. Art museum, sports, Riverwalk, everything else. The Riverwalk, by the way, we tied up all the property all the way to the North Boulevard Bridge from Stetson University, who we talked into building. And you're right, Bob, you need to have some restaurants and some places people go. Most of it was bought with Florida Land Trust money. The two parks you see developed downtown, we also purchased those, and community investment tax made that happen. Everything from the Marriott down to where the History Museum is, we purchased that. Curtis Hickson Park, where the Art Center is built, we purchased that. That was the railroad property. I sold the airport on Davis Island to the Aviation Authority for the down payment to buy that for $65 a foot. When we made the deal with Marriott, bought it for $75. All that's in place. It's going to be difficult. We have to have the Friends of the Riverwalk put the walkways under the bridges so to connect the dots. Most of the dots, my administration bought along with $80 million worth of parks this last time. Most people don't realize, through partnerships with the state and feds.
All right, now begins the fun, because now that we've concluded our prepared questions, we get to have questions that have been posed by members of our audience. And I'd like to begin by stating the obvious. We have many thoughtful people in our audience tonight who have posed many thoughtful questions, and I will continue to ask them until 8:10 so that we can keep on schedule and begin your closing remarks at 8:15. Out of all of those thoughtful questions, I think the selection committee did a wonderful job in picking the first question. And I think they picked the first question for several reasons, because tonight is about our future. This next question comes from someone who represents our future, and they may have also picked it because it's the most colorfully drawn question. 9-year-old Sierra would like to ask, I want to know why the Inner Bay pool is closed in the summer instead of the winter, because more people would come to the pool in the summer. And we are going to begin with Bob.
Well, Sierra, I am the father of a 10-year-old competitive swimmer, and she asks me that question all the time. It's interesting because I travel all around this region going to swim meets, or I used to be able to do that, and I see some of the aquatic facilities that some of the other jurisdictions have. How many parents of swimmers do we have in this audience, or grandparents of swimmers? Well, you know what I'm talking about. You travel to North Shore Pool over in St. Petersburg, or Largo, or Clearwater, and they have wonderful aquatic facilities. They are also economic engines because people will come for these meets and put heads in beds in local hotel rooms. So I think our swimming facilities not only need to be open, but they need to be upgraded. And I think swimming can be an economic tool, just as Indianapolis created an entire economy around amateur athletics. People come from all over the country to compete in Indianapolis because they made amateur athletics a priority. I'm a former Penn State lacrosse player. I understand athletics. I understand the value of athletics. That could be a wonderful opportunity for us to increase that as well.
Ed.
Well, for a guy that ran the Florida Olympic bid, I guess it doesn't come as a surprise to you that I think youth sports is a big deal and a real important deal. I coached my son and my daughter's basketball teams for a long time, and I agree with Bob. There's a way of keeping pools open for kids and having strong recreational programs. I think that's a great investment. We all understand, though, it's all got to be viewed in the context of budgetary realities. If the choice becomes down to keeping pools open or keeping paramedics coming to your doors, obviously you know what the choice is. We prefer not to be in that position. So if there's a way of doing it as mayor, working with council, trying to figure out how to get that done. That's how I feel.
Well, we did something last year, I think, John, when the mayor wanted to do the Avenues of Art. We said, hey, take $1 million of that, put in fixing up some of these pools around here so that these kids can have a place to swim. City council did that. When the mayor wanted to cut a lot of the programs in terms of after school and summer, city council stood their ground and stressed how important that was to make sure that our children have an opportunity to go to the parks and rec during the summer without increasing fees. I will say to you, as mayor, I will look at that and continue that trend because it's so very important to make sure that during the summer our children are out, that they're not in trouble, they're not in the streets, they're not somewhere where some crazy food can get close to them and drag them away from their environment. We have to protect our children, protect them in the neighborhood. We've got to make sure that there's plenty of recreation for them and a safe environment. As the next mayor, that's part of my top priority in terms of our children, our youth, and recreation. It's a key component of this community.
I wouldn't know where the pool is shut down in the summer and open in the winter. That doesn't make a lot of sense unless it broke down. Cascade, that happened. We rebuilt that one and they've had some problems, hadn't reopened it. Davis Island, same thing. They have some mechanical problems there that closed that pool for some time. I'm not sure exactly why or what's going on. I can't answer the question. We built a new one in New Tampa, partnered with the YMCA, did the same thing in Palmetto Beach and a number of others that we worked on the whole time we were there. Pools are important. It's a place for kids to go. I'm not certain why that one, it seemed like the reverse. If you close it to save money, you wouldn't do it when more people use it. It maybe something's broken, I don't know, I can't answer it intelligently because the question isn't intelligible, but it doesn't make sense for the outcome.
Listen, I'm a senior and I swim in that pool. It's not broken. They close it for budgetary.
Thank you. You know, if you want to, we'll have to talk to them after the.
If it's not broken, then it doesn't make sense.
Right.
All right, Ms. Ferlita.
When I first was elected to city council, we got our employee numbers. I had a very small number compared to the rest. That was because while I was working my way through college, I was a Parks and Rec director for the city of Tampa, so they kept that whole number. I saw what quality of life issues that was for families that took their kids to the parks, to the pools, to do things like that. It's a healthy thing. The way we can counter that, and you're right, ma'am, it's not broken, and we should look at something else. Look at something that's a non-essential service that doesn't affect our children, that doesn't affect our seniors. It's a very good thing, it's a very good economic development tool, and it makes our city shine. That's where you look at leadership. Do something else that doesn't affect services to our citizens. The core mission of government is to give you those essential services. And to me, parks, recs, pools, that's one of them, that's for sure.
All right, I forgot to point out that Sierra's handwriting at 9 is better than mine. So her parents and her school are doing a great job.